This is the anthem. Here's what you came for.
Welcome to the Disney Beat, a podcast brought to you by thedisinsider.com. My name is Sean Nyberg, and I will be covering all of the Disney headlines to keep you informed as you start your week.
Happening right now.
Hello there, this is Sean Nyberg, and this podcast is being recorded on the evening of Sunday, February 21st, 2021. Before we talk Disney, I wanted to first say that I hope everyone is doing well. This last week has seen some life-threatening weather events all over the country, and the safety of each and every one of you is important to me. If you were hard hit, I pray that you now have access to clean water, electricity, and that your family and friends are all safe. I also wanted to note that the Disney Beat was off last week due to President's Day, but it feels so good to be back. And with that, let's dive into the news. Specifically, let's start with some parks news. With the ongoing improving situation with the COVID-19 numbers and the increased availability of vaccines, there is some new life starting to come back into the Disney parks. We have learned that more than 1,000 cast members are being recalled to the Disneyland Resort for a special ticketed event to be held in Disney California Adventure coming this March. There are not a lot of details confirmed about these plans, but we do know that it will consist of food and some entertainment. The rides will not be included, but it appears large sections of the park will be reopening to make room for guests. Since much of California is still under fairly strict COVID-19 guidelines, the Disney parks will act more like an outdoor mall and less like a theme park, which means a lot of food and shopping options. This is a step in the right direction, and the fact that it means many cast members will be able to work again should be reason enough to celebrate. As we get closer to Disneyland reopening someday, it seems the rumor mill is set to warp speed as people try and guess what Disney is going to do with the annual passes for the Anaheim parks. Remember, they announced that they are canceling the annual park passes. They are going to call the people who had them legacy pass holders, and there's no real clear idea of what they're going to do in the future for these passes. So, like I said, the rumor mill is all hyped up, and one of the rumors in particular got some traction this week, and it caught our eye as a plausible option moving forward. The idea would have time-specific passes for annual pass holders, which means you would have access to the park on certain days only during the day or only during the evening. That would allow them to funnel more people through the park in one day, since the inevitable initial attendance caps will mean likely the park will reach capacity often in the early days of reopening. This has yet to be confirmed by Disney, and I'm sure they are thinking of every available option to maximize profits and guest experience. So the thinking here would be like how when they opened Galaxy's Edge, if you guys were either there or you saw it, where you would have there'd be two windows throughout the day. There'd be like morning and there'd be evening, and you would come in and you would have either access to either one, and then they'd kind of clear the park out between the two time frames. And so this has just been thrown around. The idea would be so instead, let's just say there's 3,000 people are allowed in the park, right? So there's only 3,000 people, and they can be there anytime, all day, throughout the whole day. Then that's 3,000 people. But if they do split the day up into morning/midday passes and then afternoon, evening passes, that means they could get 3,000 people twice into the park in one day. So up to 6,000 people could enjoy the park. So that's just one of the thoughts that's going around. It seems somewhat plausible maybe for the early days of the reopening. And so it's just something we're keeping an eye out. And there's going to be a lot of rumors moving forward because there's a lot of local people who are really anxious to see what the availability is going to be once there is a reopening. My suggestion, let's just get to the reopening first, and then we can worry about that later. So on the other side of the country, Walt Disney World released concept art and some more information regarding their upcoming 50th anniversary celebration. You can see all of the concept art over at thedisinsider.com. We learned that the event will kick off October 1st of this year, which is the 50th anniversary of the resort and the Magic Kingdom. The festivities will continue for 18 months, taking them into March of 2023. This was originally planned to start earlier this year, but the COVID-19 pandemic pushed things back and caused a number of the projects to be pared down or cut out completely. The new roller coaster in Tomorrowland at the Magic Kingdom, Tron Light Cycle Run, was planned to open earlier this year, but will be pushed back into early 2022. The Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind ride coming to Epcot was also expected to open sometime this year, but that will be pushed back later into 2022. The other Epcot ride, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, coming to the France Pavilion and Epcot's World Showcase, is expected to open sometime this year, with construction seemingly completed, and the walls around the entrance seem to slowly be coming down on a near daily basis. So everyone's just watching and waiting for the announcement of a soft opening and then a grand opening. So there's no date announced, and nothing. There was no announcement on the recent investor call with Bob Chapek, the CEO. So we're just kind of waiting and watching every day, expecting an announcement soon. The 50th celebration will see a new look for the Magic Kingdom, including gold bunting and a 50th anniversary logo. The other three parks will see their individual icons transformed as well, with new lighting designs and gold accents. Mickey and Minnie will get new celebratory outfits for the 50th, including custom-made fashions of iridescent fabric with gold highlights. I don't know if you heard that, but iridescent, not iridescent. Iridescent? Ear. Get it? I mean, E-A-R. It's just Disney loves their wordplay. So, iridescent fabric with gold highlights. You can see new outfits in the concept art for the park icon makeovers over at thedisinsider.com. It should be noted that since the 50th celebration will last 18 months, it will run into the 40th anniversary for Epcot, which starts on October 1st, 2022. It is unclear what specific celebrations are planned for Epcot's 40th, but we do know that there are 2 rides that should open by the end of 2022 that I previously mentioned, along with a new water feature themed around Moana and a new play pavilion, which will bring interactive attractions for all ages. There is a large update planned for the Spaceship Earth ride that was postponed with no new date announced. So that one should be placed on the maybe list, along with a brand new rumor that surfaced yesterday that Disney is working on a revamp of the near universally disliked attraction Journey into Imagination. So near universally disliked, that's a little bit harsh, but it was a favorite for a while. They redid it. They made it a little bit more cheesy, I guess some people would say. And so there's a rumor that popped up yesterday that they're going to be revamping that ride too, which everyone jumped on top of. So this may just be a fever dream for hardcore Epcot fans, but this rumor seems to be gaining traction among many sources with reliable connections within the parks. We will wait and see if this update becomes a reality. Along with Spaceship Earth, we will also be looking for details regarding opening dates for Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, Tron Light Cycle Run over Magic Kingdom. We are also keeping an eye out for the Moana Journey of Water project and the Play Pavilion. They are also close to finishing up the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel, aka the Star Wars Hotel, connected to Disney Hollywood Studios, along with the Space 220 restaurant over in Epcot. Both of those projects use similar technology to simulate being in space and are expected to open sometime this year. While we got some new information about the upcoming 50th celebration down in Walt Disney World, clearly there are way more questions yet to be answered. As things begin to open up and improving COVID-19 news and projects begin to pick up and wrap up, we will be getting more news in these projects, and we will share it all with you here on the Disney Beat podcast and over at thedisinsider.com. On a final bit of parks news, this past week, Hong Kong Disneyland reopened after COVID-19 cases drastically improved in that region. The park reopened on Friday, February 19th, and this has been the park's 3rd time closing and reopening since the pandemic. So, knock on wood, this should be, well, I'll do it right now, listen. Hope you heard that. This should be the final time that this has to happen for them. This leaves the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim and Disneyland Paris in France as the 2 Disney resorts still closed. Paris should reopen by some point in April, and Anaheim is anyone's guess at this point. The resort is ready to reopen. They just need to get clearance from the state, and we'll be watching that very closely. Last week, Disney held their quarterly earnings report for the first quarter of 2021, and just a reminder that Disney's fiscal 2021 starts at the end of September 2020 and ended with the new year. So basically, their fiscal quarter runs about 1 quarter behind the calendar quarter. This is true with most companies, with some small exceptions. So during the investor call, Disney reported their financials for the final 3 months of 2020, and as expected, there were big losses compared to the same quarter of the previous year. None of this was a surprise, as a number of Disney's parks were closed during that time period, along with the majority of movie theaters, shuttering any meaningful box office returns. As a comparison, during this time period last year, Disney had released Frozen 2. The film became the highest grossing animated film of all time, so that is the comparison Disney was facing this year, with practically all domestic theater chains shut down. Not only was Disney facing a lack of cash flow into the company, with the parks and the box office returns hobbled, not to mention their extremely profitable cruise line completely shut down, they also are experiencing large cash flow out of the company as they continue to invest heavily in the direct-to-consumer streaming services, Disney+, Hulu, and ESPN+. These services have yet to turn a profit and likely will not for another 3 years, with large upfront costs associated with developing new content and building and expanding the infrastructure required for a global streaming service. Not to mention advertising costs and licensing fees necessary for Hulu to air non-Disney owned material and ESPN+ to stream certain sports. That stuff costs money. So once again, it's happened the last few quarters, is Disney's linear media had to make up the slack. This includes ABC, Disney Channel, Freeform, ESPN, and FX, and a handful of other networks. While this division was successful during this time period, the industry as a whole is starting to disappear as people cut the cord on their cable packages and switch to streaming. Switch to streaming, not just switch to streaming, but switch to streaming solely. A lot of people have, streaming and cable, and the people are just starting to cut those cords with the cable companies, and they're just going to streaming. So as they do that, they're going to start losing, they're going to lose the revenue from, ABC, FX, Freeform, ESPN, Disney Channel. So while this division saved Disney this quarter, they can't rely on it in the long term. During the pandemic, the viewership for sports was way down, which hurt ESPN, and there is increased costs associated with running these networks. Thankfully, the improving news about the pandemic has brought life back into the short-term future outlook of Disney's theme parks and some signs of hope for their cruise line to start sailing again. This segment of the Walt Disney Company is a huge moneymaker for the company, and while they make the switch from the linear networks, ABC, FX, Disney Channel, ESPN, to their streaming services, Disney+, Hulu, ESPN+, and their international services, they really need the steady revenue coming in from the parks and cruise line. Obviously, the box office returns have been a huge source of revenue for Disney, but it is inconsistent and unreliable. Remember, for every Lion King and Aladdin live-action film that brings in over $1 billion, there are live-action flops like Dumbo or the Alice in Wonderland sequel that ends up losing money. Disney has been the undisputed king of the box office for years, but the success is not guaranteed, or at least not to the extent it is with their Parks, Experience, and Products division. Assuming, of course, that there is no global pandemic. That's kind of why people think of the parks and the cruise line as just the money-making machines, because they fluctuate a little bit. They've just kind of been steadily going up in terms of attendance, and as they get better with their pricing and stuff, the cost to run them is coming down a little bit, and they're jacking up prices for admission and for souvenirs and stuff in the retail store. So it's just a steady source of income that can keep the company really, really solvent while they spend a lot of money on these movies and a lot of money on the streaming services. So they're very happy that it looks like this stuff's going to come back. One would be excused to assume the first quarter investor report was a failure for Disney based on the overview I just laid out, but it actually was considered a big success. You see, investors already knew how the pandemic was affecting their theme parks and box office returns, and they already knew that building their streaming service is an extremely expensive endeavor, so they already factored all of that in when establishing their expectations, otherwise known as their forecasts. So Disney actually outperformed these expectations, and the investor community was thrilled, and Disney's stock price soared. This last month, the company's stock price has set new record highs on a number of occasions and continues to hover around these numbers. Investors are thrilled with Disney and with how CEO Bob Chapek has maneuvered the company through this time. The headline-making news from the Q1 report was actually what investors really, really wanted to hear. Disney Plus paid subscriptions jumped to just under 95 million by January 2nd of this last year. an astonishingly high number, especially since they had 86.5 million subscribers only 1 month earlier. This was huge news, and it settled any question that the streaming wars is really a two-person race between Disney Plus and Netflix. So, you hear a lot about Peacock, or you might hear about HBO Max, or Hulu, but Disney owns it, and Hulu and ESPN Plus actually, their subscribers have grown. But you hear about all these other ones, especially with HBO Max, with them deciding to Warner Brothers releasing all of their theatrical releases straight to HBO Max. If you look at the subscriber counts for those services, it's very low compared to what Disney has done in 14 months. It is incredible how fast Disney Plus has grown. And obviously Netflix was the first one out, so they are the king. Disney Plus has really given them a run for their money, and that looks like that's really going to be the big story coming out of the streaming wars, are those two, Netflix and Disney Plus. And then the other one's kind of fighting for third. And a lot of studies have shown that the average consumer is only willing to spend about, it's like $30 or $40 some dollars a month for their streaming, which equals about 3 services. So the big, maybe 3, and then like Shudder, which is horror movies, or Discovery Plus, which is like $4.99 a month. Like a third or fourth kind of more, a cheaper option, right? So it's really looking, Disney Plus and Netflix are really the ones to beat. And obviously Hulu is owned by Disney, and we're just a matter of times. It could be next year, it could be 5 years, but Hulu's eventually going to be worked into Disney Plus, into one streaming service soon. Keep in mind, this is for the time period ending on January 2nd, meaning Disney Plus only had one major original hit during this time period where they collected up to 95 million subscribers. Only one original hit, which is The Mandalorian. So the subscriber growth brought on by WandaVision this last month has not been accounted for yet, and the upcoming Marvel series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming in March, and Loki coming in May, along with the premiere access release of Raya and the Last Dragon coming next week, will only supercharge subscriber growth. The general idea being that if Disney Plus can hit half of Netflix's 13-year subscriber count in just 14 months, with only one major original hit, the sky is the limit once the endless number of original programs start hitting the service this year. Investors will look past today's losses if they see long-term growth, and nothing settles Wall Street's nerves better than a growing subscription service that sees monthly dues paid with little churn. And churn being the number of subscribers who sign up and then cancel their subscription shortly thereafter. So these streaming services want low churn, okay? They want people to sign up and stay. And Disney's report was music to their ears, especially with the parks opening back up and some huge movies lined up for theatrical release later this year. The company looks to be in an incredibly strong position, and continued growth looks to be the very, very bright future for Disney, and Wall Street rewarded that with a huge jump in their stock price. Speaking of Disney Plus and their newest hit series WandaVision, it was reported that the series has become the #1 most popular streaming series worldwide. Streaming numbers are not as straightforward to track as network TV ratings, but a firm called Parrot Analytics has developed an audience attention measurement system that includes capturing audience behavior by sifting through social media mentions, fan ratings, and piracy data to determine which series are being consumed and discussed the most. WandaVision's first 2 weeks saw it initially show up as number 7 in their list, and then it dropped down to number 35. But as the episodes continued week after week and the hype and the mystery started to swell, the show shot to number 1 and has stayed there for a number of weeks. Both The Mandalorian and WandaVision have demonstrated that Disney's former CEO, Bob Iger, who is still working for Disney as an executive chairman in charge of creative content, his decision to release episodes on Disney Plus of new series every week instead of one big binge-worthy dump was a very smart decision. It keeps the show in the public discourse for much longer and allows for an audience to grow over the weeks. It will be very interesting to see if the show has helped attract a large number of new subscribers to the service. However, we likely won't know that for another 3 months. So I love WandaVision. I started it, like probably many of you, if you've watched it. I knew that it was going to be a lot bigger than what those initial episodes showed. So, my fiance was a little like, I don't know about this show, but I just said, I promise you, there's a bigger story underneath. And it's just become such an amazing hit. By the time I'm recording it, they just did episode 7. I won't ruin anything for you, but there's 2 more episodes left, and I am hooked. And everyone I know over the last month at some point or another has gotten on board, and everyone's just really hooked and very excited. So, in other Disney Plus news, the riveting tale of mystery, suspense, and time travel for kids and families, titled Secrets of Sulphur Springs, will premiere on Disney Plus with 5 episodes on Friday, February 26th, with new episodes available to stream each Friday in March through April 9th. Since its Disney Channel premiere back in January, Secrets of Sulphur Springs has reached 3.5 million total viewers and has ranked as the #1 series across all basic cable with girls 6 to 11, and is the #1 series on Disney Now. Its season finale debuts Friday, March 12th on the Disney Channel. It was announced this week that an upcoming documentary series titled Choir will be heading to Disney Plus. Inspired by the story of the Detroit Youth Choir, the series will run for 6 episodes and follow their rise to fame during the 14th season of America's Got Talent. It will heavily focus on their artistic director, Anthony White, who has changed the lives of hundreds of young singers during his tenure with the choir. Choir will be produced by Blumhouse Television, known usually for their horror content. This marks the first collaboration between Blumhouse and Disney. Also in production is a companion scripted series which is confirmed to share the same production team and will likely follow the same premise. The scripted series will be executive produced by Anthony Sparks, who is known for his work on The Blacklist. The filmmakers behind the critically acclaimed National Geographic documentary Science Fair are back, and this time they've got their sights on a brand new set of students. Directors Christina Constantini and Darren Foster are reteaming for a documentary entitled Own the Room about 5 international students who are all competing at the Global Student Entrepreneur, wow, let's try that again, right? Who are all competing at the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards, one of the most prestigious entrepreneurial events in the world. Own the Room will be available to stream exclusively on Disney Plus on March 12th, and maybe somewhere in that show they will say entrepreneur right, unlike I am right now. So we got some new trailers recently, and they sure made a splash when they were released. The trailer for the upcoming Disney Plus series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that dropped during the Super Bowl 2 weeks ago, has apparently become the most watched trailer for a TV series ever. The 2-minute teaser trailer scored an unprecedented 125 million views in its first 24 hours. That's including people who watched it live. And mind you that the Super Bowl actually had lower ratings than previous years. So, obviously Super Bowl ratings are huge, but this year was less than previous years. So now to put that 125 million views in 24 hours in perspective, WandaVision's commercial during the primetime Emmys last year garnered only 53 million views in its first 24 hours. Additionally, the Black Widow spot from last year's Super Bowl received only 119 million views in its first 24 hours. People are excited for this, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I am one of them. This past Wednesday, Disney's long-awaited trailer for the upcoming film Cruella debuted, and the fans went wild for it. The trailer for the live-action film based on the popular Disney villain drew over 71 million views in the first 24 hours. The viewership for the trailer beat 24-hour figures for 2 other Disney live-action tentpole films, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which was 61.7 million views, and the Will Smith Guy Ritchie hit Aladdin with 60.8 million views. Cruella is currently scheduled to debut May 28, 2021 in theaters, and you can find both those trailers at thedisinsider.com. So we all know that The Mandalorian had a behind-the-scenes documentary series titled The Disney Gallery over on Disney Plus. Now, the hit Marvel Studios series, WandaVision, will be getting one of its own as well. Marvel Studios just announced the new documentary series titled Assembled. This series will go behind the scenes of the shows and movies of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It will debut on March 12th with the very first special titled Assembled, The Making of WandaVision. It'll premiere again on March 12th on Disney+. And as always, new and cast and crew announcements were revealed this past week for upcoming projects. So the upcoming Miss Marvel series has cast actress Lauren Marsden from Survive to play Zoe Zimmer, a friend and rival to Miss Marvel Kamala Khan. The series is currently filming in the Marvel Studios Mecca, Atlanta, Georgia, and is expected to be released on Disney Plus later next year. Actress Zawe Ashton has been cast in the upcoming Marvel film Captain Marvel 2. Ashton will star alongside Brie Larson as the yet-to-be-named villain. Ashton recently starred in the 2019 horror comedy Velvet Buzzsaw and has an extensive theater background. Captain Marvel 2 will be directed by Candyman director Nia DaCosta and is slated to be released on November 11th, 2022. In a story that we are technically filing under rumor, but is leaning heavily toward confirmed, is that the live-action Aladdin star Mina Masood will be playing Star Wars character Ezra Bridger in an upcoming live-action project. The character Ezra Bridger made his first and only appearance in the animated series Star Wars Rebels, which was the first show from Lucasfilm Animation following the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney. While our sources are strong for this story, it is yet to be officially confirmed, so it remains a rumor. We will let you know if things change. A pretty huge announcement came from one of Disney's biggest upcoming theatrical releases. We have learned that legendary film composer Danny Elfman is returning to the Marvel Cinematic Universe to score the upcoming Sam Raimi film, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Elfman worked on 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron and has a long history with director Sam Raimi. Among Disney fans, Elfman may be best known for his work in the groundbreaking musical The Nightmare Before Christmas. He is one of the most prolific composers working today and finds himself among the likes of John Williams, Hans Zimmer, and Michael Giacchino. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is currently set to be released in theaters on March 25th, 2022. This is the big one. Really, really, really big film coming for Disney and Marvel. People are really excited for this one. Then a lot of these series that we're talking about with Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision, they're all building up to that movie too. So it's going to be a big release in about 1 year. To wrap up the cast and crew news, there was huge news this past week that centered on a female actor who will not be recast for future Disney projects. This one made headlines around the world. It was reported that Gina Carano would not be recast by Lucasfilm in her role of Cara Dune in The Mandalorian Disney Plus series or any rumored spin-off series. This follows a series of social media posts made by Carano that dates far beyond this last week. The debate around this news can get heated, so I'll just stick with the facts. Miss Carano posted a number of social media posts that were extremely offensive against trans persons, and then also a series of anti-mask posts. And finally, after pleas from Disney and her own talent agency for her to avoid offensive posts, she shared a post equating her situation with Jewish persons in Germany prior to Nazi control. This was the last straw, and Lucasfilm communicated that they would not be going forward with any future projects with Miss Carano, and her talent agency dropped her as a client. To be clear, she was not fired. There were no contracts that were breached or canceled. It was just decided that they would not pursue any future work with the actress. It also reminds us that our First Amendment freedom of speech does not provide us freedom of consequences from our speech from a private company, especially a company that values that value is tied closely to its public image. Prior to the controversy, it had been reported that Ms. Carano's representatives were in talks with a pay increase for Ms. Carano and a potential spin-off series. No deal was ever made prior to their decision to cut ties. Disney has reported that they have no plans to recast the role of Cara Dune. In a little bit of more Star Wars news, a little happier Star Wars news, well, depends on what fan you're talking to, but for me, it's happier. It was reported that the upcoming Star Wars film trilogy written and directed by Rian Johnson, is still happening. Johnson is best known to Star Wars fans for writing and directing Episode 8 of the Skywalker series, titled The Last Jedi. It had long been known that Johnson was planning a film trilogy for the franchise, aside from The Last Jedi, just his own film trilogy, but its absence during the Disney Investor Day back in December drew many to wonder if the project was canceled. However, in a recent interview, it was revealed that the trilogy is still happening, but no further information was shared aside from that. So we'll keep an eye out for any news regarding this and any other Star Wars projects. Well, we finally came to the end of the Ultimate Disneyland Resort Tournament of Rides. We have been narrowing down the 52 rides within the Disneyland Resort over the last 6 weeks and finally got down to the ultimate winner. After 170,144 votes and 6 rounds, the ride chosen by fans as the best ride in the Disneyland Resort is Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates beat out the Haunted Mansion in the final matchup 56% to 44%, putting Pirates of the Caribbean at number 1, the Haunted Mansion at number 2, and Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and Indiana Jones rounding out the top 4. It is important to note that Star Wars Rise of the Resistance was not included in this tournament as it was only open for 2 months prior to the COVID-19 shutdown. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who voted. The response was overwhelming and people really got into this one. We will do a similar tournament for Walt Disney World, but that will wait a few months or so that there's no confusion from the voting fans, as many of the rides have the same name. So they'll be like, wait, didn't I just vote on Haunted Mansion? So if we space it out a couple months, there'll obviously be a clear distinction that this is for Walt Disney World. So look for that later, early summer, late spring. Congratulations to Pirates of the Caribbean. It is amazing how a ride that opened in 1967 can still hold such broad appeal among guests of all ages over 50 years later. While there have been small additions and changes, we know they added Jack Sparrow when the film series became a big hit, and they made some changes just due to some, changing times and cultural norms, as how they put it. They relatively are small if you look at the grand scheme of things with this ride. And, it's just amazing that just with those small changes, the majority of the ride stayed the same from when Walt Disney was alive and he helped to develop it. It just shows that great storytelling, art design, and classic theatrical special effects are truly at the core of every great attraction. I know I am not the only one who is looking forward to dropping down into the depths of this ride once Disneyland reopens. I kind of talked over quickly, but, it is interesting to note that while Walt Disney himself passed before the ride opened, it was essentially completed while he was alive, right? The gist of it was done. And it was like the last ride he really had his hands on before he passed. While he had, he did help with some of the stuff leading up to the Haunted Mansion, there was a big gap after he passed before that one opened. So Pirates is really like the last one that really has a signature on it. And it's just amazing, though, that one is the one that, has won 170,000+ votes over 6 weeks. And it's Pirates of the Caribbean from 1967. It's just absolutely amazing. And, I'm pretty happy, I love it. It's not the ride that I get excited for, but it's the ride I always do. I can't go to Disneyland and not do Pirates of the Caribbean. So with that, I want to remind you to please visit thedisinsider.com to see a number of features that were not discussed in this episode, including a review of the newest Disney Plus original film, Flora and Ulysses. Information on an upcoming Nightmare Before Christmas YA book that will focus on Sally, a complete list of shows coming to the international Disney Plus streaming services, and the ongoing series 20 Weeks of Disney Animation from our fabulous writer Josh Sharp, who, over the past 2 weeks, tackles Meet the Robinsons, Bolt, The Princess and the Frog, Tangled, and Winnie the Pooh. So go check all of that out at thedisinsider.com. On behalf of myself and those of us here at the Disney Beat, along with the Disinsider, we wish everyone good health and prosperity. With that, I want to say thank you for listening. If you like the show, please rate and review it wherever you listen. These ratings really help the show find new listeners, and we hope that we have earned a 5-star review. We also ask that you share this podcast with friends and family who love Disney. If we didn't earn a 5-star review, please shoot me a message at nybergshawn@gmail.com, or hit me up on my Instagram or Facebook or Twitter and let me know what I can do to make this better, make it something you enjoy more. All the stories that I talked about here can be found at thedisinsider.com. Follow The Disinsider on the Twitter and Instagram handles at The Disinsider, or on Facebook by searching The Disinsider. You can follow me, your host, Sean Nyberg, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Sean Nyberg, all one word, SeanNyberg, all one word. I also co-host the Disney podcast, Walt's Apartment, that comes out every Thursday, and the Disney Parks themed podcast, Extra Magic Hour, which is released every other Friday. So check those out. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you here again next week for another edition of the Disney Beat podcast. My name is Sean Nyberg. Have a fantastic week.